Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Todd Talk. Because when Todd talks, people listen. Hopefully. And yes, I love doing that with my hair. Uh, we're going to do something a little different today. For those expecting my death battle prediction about the rather odd red versus blue matchup of Carolina versus the Meta, you're going to have to wait till next week. I'm actually catching up on red versus blue, and I'm glad I did. Explain why in my preview. And they didn't show the video for Carolina today, probably because the battle itself is until the 30th, and so they're going to show the preview next week and then go from there. So today, though, we are going to talk about another passion of mine, wrestling. Yes, I know I totally look it, but I am a big wrestling fan. I watch WWE. I used to watch TNA a lot. I'm actually about to get into Lucha Underground, and I watch NXT. So yesterday was a big event in the WWE. It was the WWE Draft. For those who are unaware, for the last few years, they technically have only been running a few shows. And by running, I mean shows of significance. One was Monday Night Raw, which they even extended to 3 hours. And then there was NXT, which is their developmental brand, which has exploded all over the world. But SmackDown, ever since the merging of the WWE and World Heavyweight Championships, has been kind of irrelevant. Nothing significant has happened there outside of one title change that I can remember. And that was a really crappy one, to be honest with you. And so in the last, let's see, it's July, so 7 months, things have started changing. Shane McMahon came back. He started taking over on Raw, and then they announced that SmackDown would go from Thursdays to Tuesdays. It would be live, and it would be like the old days, the days where I came in, where they had unique superstars, unique matchups, and unique Raw general managers, or sorry, Raw and SmackDown general managers to take control of everything. And the draft was a kind of a rehash, if you will, of the original draft, which came after WrestleMania 20, where it all begins again, and to help establish this. So they've been hyping this so much that they needed to pull it off in a big way. And they started this off on Monday, actually, where they announced that Mick Foley would be the general manager of Raw, probably to the surprise of everyone. And then apparently everyone but me knew that Daniel Bryan is going to be the general manager of SmackDown, which is also awesome. But then there's the draft itself. Like, would they succeed? What big thing were they going to do? My overall impression was meh. There are two things that went wrong. First, it was outside of, I'd say, the first 13 picks, everything was clearly, I gotta say this right, it was obvious that SmackDown was not going to win. Let me explain. We all knew that they weren't going to get everyone. That was the whole point. And because Raw is a 3 hour show, they obviously had to get more. They even did a whole, Raw gets 3 picks, SmackDown gets 2. And to an extent, I can agree with that. But if, it balanced out talent wise, we'd be okay with that, because you could have more superstars if they're not all the good superstars. And that was okay. So, like, right off the bat, Raw drafted Seth Rollins, which was fine because you knew Stephanie wanted him. She thought he would be the WWE Championship. Don't even get me started on that match on Monday night. It was absolutely horrible. The ending, not the match itself, I'll be fair. And then, of course, SmackDown drafted Dean Ambrose, who is the WWE Champion currently, which means that I would say 90% chance that he is the champion coming out of Battleground, the triple threat match, the Shield triple threat, where Roman Reigns comes back, which I'm looking forward to. And Battleground this Sunday, only on the WWE Network. So I'm looking forward to that. And that was actually good that, not only did they have that second championship match, but that Dean retained so that SmackDown has credibility. Because if SmackDown doesn't have credibility in all of this, we're just going to go back to a Raw dominate situation. The problem became where they showed their hand of how staged it was. Let me explain. So the first 5 picks were awesome. Okay, the first 5 were just flat out awesome. Okay, because Seth went 1, Dean went 2, Charlotte went 3, which is actually very, very interesting because you could argue that Charlotte could have been taken, out of the top 10, even though, yeah, she's a women's champion and all of that, but she could have taken later and no one would have batted an eye. But because they picked her third, they established the women's division is very, very important to them. And I am glad for that. We got another pick about that coming up later. And then SmackDown picked phenomenal AJ Styles, my guy, to lead SmackDown. And if he ain't running SmackDown, with the title in like 6 months, I'm gonna riot because he's phenomenal. He's AJ, and they don't want none. So that was really good. And then number 5, oh my gosh, they picked Finn Balor. Now, to be clear, anyone who watches NXT, Finn Balor is one of the best to come to the brand. He wasn't an original, but he was one of the ones they brought in to really, beef up the roster, and he like soared to every height imaginable. And so when it kind of became clear after he lost the NXT title to Samoa Joe, another great wrestler from TNA. They just call it NXT TNA. Get it? Thank you. So after he lost it was kind of becoming clear that he was going to come to Raw or SmackDown eventually. And when the draft was announced, it was like, okay, he's going to be coming out. And then they went the whole, there's going to be 6 NXT superstars coming up in the draft. And so you kind of knew Finn was going to be one of them. Finn was like the guarantee. But for them to pick number 5 shows just how important they're valuing the future as well as the present. So yeah, and then like the next 5 were also good. You had Brock Lesnar picked, you had John Cena going to SmackDown, which is actually significant. Picked, Randy Orton going to SmackDown, which is also good. But then as let's see, 13 was what was it, Bray Wyatt or something like that. Once we get after pick 13, no, 13 was Sasha. 13 was Sasha, which I could understand. Then SmackDown picked Becky Lynch. Now, anyone who knows me, of all the divas I love 2 the most, and that is Bayley, hugger for life, and Becky. I just love the character Becky. I think she's great. Fans love her. But to pick her at 14 felt odd. It really, really did. And again, Becky's great. I honestly thought she might have been the champion by now. Sadly, she's not. But then to put her on SmackDown, where at present, there is no women's title, it's curious. Now, obviously, personally, I think that both the tag team division and the women's division will get another title like in the old days. Yeah. Sorry, I had to think about that for a second. So the tag team titles were 2. I think the women's title bounced back and forth, so that one's okay. But I think that we'll get another title. But it felt odd. Like this is where the whole like staging thing came in, because things just started falling, and especially when they went to what I guess you call it the extended draft, the supplemental draft, or whatever. Things just really got weird, and then you kind of knew, okay, this isn't for real. This was, let's just see where the pieces fall. Once pick 13 with Sasha came in, which you can understand in context, but things just started going downhill. If you want a great example of this, the whole point of the new era was to promote the new talent, and one of the biggest new talents that's been around was Apollo Crews. He came from NXT. He was a big signing for NXT. He only had a short run, but that was okay because they really had a lot of talent flowing up in there. And then he gets picked up to Raw quite suddenly. Like there was like no promotion, which was actually worked to his favor. And then he's had these big matches. He had a rivalry with Sheamus for a while, and he was part of the new era thing. And yet he was picked number 45. Now, before you think, well, what's so bad about that? Well, here's the thing. SmackDown picked Naomi, my opinion, one of the worst divas of the previous generation before the Women's Revolution, aka any NXT diva outside of Paige's NXT. What am I saying? Natalya. There we go. And arguably the Bellas. I'm really arguing hard against that, but we'll just roll with it. They picked Naomi over Apollo Crews. They picked Natalya, who I dig. I dig Natalya. She's hardcore old school, Heart Dungeon and all that. They picked Natalya above Apollo Crews. Natalya was like, I don't know, 19 or something like that. It's like they were convinced that we needed to know that there was going to be Divas on SmackDown. And yet at current, there's no reason to have the Divas on SmackDown. Not because they couldn't be, but because there's no need. Right now, there is no women's title. I mean, heck, even to bring back the Divas title, which you could argue would be a bad thing. Why? I don't know. And then, yes, they brought in more Divas to kind of balance it out, but what's the point? If there's only going to be one title, unless they're going to do like blood feud rivalries, like what they're kind of doing with Becky and Natalya right now, what's the point? Which brings me to one of my biggest complaints about the draft, and one I've seen many fans rage about. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are on the same show. They've been building up this match at Battleground to be, it's the final match in the rivalry. It's the end of their feud. And even JBL on Monday said, I will make a I can't do the exact set, I'm sorry, but it's like, if there's ever a guarantee, there's going to be one guarantee, and there's that those two will not be on the same show because no general manager is going to pick them together because they don't want this. I mean, they even showed them, fighting on SmackDown, before they could even get into a match with each other, and then, surprisingly to me, Stephanie picked Sami for Raw. I was like, okay, KO can dominate on SmackDown, but then she goes, nope, and then I don't know, 6 picks later, he was 18, I think. We're drafting Kevin Owens. It's just like, what's the point of that? Because now it's like, oh, maybe this won't be the end of the matchup. Maybe this won't be the end of the rivalry. Well, then stop hyping it up as that. Okay, they honestly should be on different shows so that they can dominate somewhere else. Because eventually they're gonna have to fight each other unless you explicitly break them up to feuds that they literally don't even see each other in the hallways, which is impossible. What's the point? And the fact that, again, I love Becky and I appreciate Natalya, but the fact that Shane and Danny Bryan drafted those two over arguably getting Sami Zayn or KO, it's stupid. Which brings me to Cesaro. Cesaro went way low in the televised draft, and my first thought is he's one of the best talents, pure. He's one of the arguably one of the most fan beloved. He's really gotten a resurgence since his return right after WrestleMania, and then SmackDown doesn't draft him. Who does SmackDown have? Okay, now that's a rhetorical question. I know who SmackDown has. Okay, I'm actually happy with a lot of the picks that they do have. They got AJ, who I'm happy about. Cena, which actually will work well. Bray Wyatt was a surprise. And there's rumors that because Rowan was drafted to SmackDown and Luke Harper will eventually be coming back, that helps them. So they have the Wyatt family on SmackDown. That'll be a big pull. Dolph Ziggler, I think, will be great because he really needs a revitalization. And with the Intercontinental title being on SmackDown, that was a good move. That might help him. Baron Corbin, I think, is going to be an underrated thing. People are talking about how green he is, but he's pretty. He can be very impressive when push comes to shove. And you got these, and obviously Apollo Crews is on SmackDown, so I'm happy about that. But they have KO, Sami Zayn, and Cesaro all on Raw. That just feels like wasted talent because they're going to be colliding with each other. And at least if they were, even if just 2 of the 3 were on one show and the third was on the other, that's domination. They could dominate their own brands and be built up and to be something special. But now I just feel kind of like what was going on with the Intercontinental Championship thing. They were all getting pushed, and so no one was getting pushed. It just didn't make sense. And then you had more questionable things as you just saw this supplemental draft go on. Divas that should not have been drafted as high were super high on the list. Dana Brooke. She's been one of the spotlights in the Divas division. We had that bad thing with Emma, and that was unfortunate. But then she got paired with Charlotte, and then she was the third to last draft pick. I mean, she got drafted below Eva Marie. Dana is infinitely more talented than Eva Marie. Infinitely more talented than Naomi. and yet she got drafted like third to last. I mean, that made no sense. And like, just some of these picks, like Demon King was above Apollo Crews. I'm not gonna shut up about Apollo Crews because he should have been on a televised draft. I'm sorry, and it was so staged. I mean, and then there was the fact that they had the whole supplemental draft thing, which was horrible. You know, 'cause you had to have the network, you had to watch the draft center live, and then like I actually tried to watch it, and then like when I saw they were just gonna like roll them out like without actually making the picks, that made me feel cheated because I would have rather have seen them on stage on SmackDown doing the whole thing. Now I know they had to have matches throughout, but we all knew the matches weren't going to matter. I would have won by saying that if I put money on Dean Ambrose winning, that he would have won, and he did. So it just made no sense to me that they did that, and so it frustrates me because SmackDown. Okay, I gotta say this right. SmackDown doesn't look weak right now because they have some good things, but if they don't add certain things, they actually have a solid tag team division right now. They have the Usos, who I love. They have the Vaudevillains, who are a great tag team. I think they were a little underappreciated in NXT, even though they did hold the titles. Dash and Dawson, I can never forgive NXT for that. They have a Brizongo, who I actually hope will split up so Tyler Breeze can get the recognition he deserves. He should be one of the guys running the show right now. And the Ascension, those guys were the dominant tag team in NXT. They got to Raw and they got burned. So I'm hoping that they get the push up they need, because if they do bring back the I don't know, the World Tag Team Champions, the WWE Tag Team Championship, I don't know, a separate tag team title, they have the teams now to make it work and make it good. These are solid tag teams, minus Breezango, and so there's the potential for that. But then there's like all these other questionable moves. I still hate that Cesaro, KO, and Sami Zayn are all on Raw, because that's just gonna hurt them. Whereas if one of them was on SmackDown, it could have helped out. And Bray Wyatt, that's a wild card here. They could prop him up, big time. It could work. The Club is on Raw, which that's 50-50 because I think they brought the Club together with AJ so that they could make them a force, and now they're separating them after the Battleground pay-per-view, and it just makes me curious. SmackDown isn't weak because it does have these stars, but it's just too many questions, And then Raw has, they have the New Day, which are the tag team champions. They have Reigns and Rollins. They have Cesaro, KO, and Sami Zayn. I don't know why I keep saying KO. Just to say Kevin Owens, but I just like saying KO. KO. Sorry, I'm having fun tonight. This is the most I've smiled like all day, so I'm sorry. My friend Aubrey made this. She's really awesome. I'll post a link in the description. Lost train of thought. But anyway, like I know Raw's got 3 hours, but right now they're just so dominant in how this draft fell out that if things don't change, it's going to look pointless. Because the whole point of this is to promote a rivalry. That's what the original draft was all about. We're going to shake things up again. We're going to make it important, make it count, and it did. I mean, the original draft had John Cena going to Raw, and the rest is history. Had Batista going to SmackDown, which was great. He had a great rivalry with JBL. All these changes. It brought the Dudley Boys back. Was this something else? Never mind. But it had all these great moves, and so you felt it was important, and it was important. That was when SmackDown was really, really important, and then it kind of fell by the wayside when they combined the titles together, and now it was nothing. But so now they're trying to say, hey, it's important again, and the draft says not the exact opposite, but it's saying, maybe not. I mean, having Daniel Bryan as general manager is perfect because that's the voice of the fans right there. And if these superstars are played to their fullest potential, it's going to be awesome. AJ can totally run that show. Dolph Ziggler can steal the show. You got Cena, who's going to bring the fans in. And then you got these new guns like Baron Corbin and Apollo Crews. But I just don't feel they have enough. You know what I mean? There's just not enough. And there's the question of the women's division. What's the point of the women's division unless they're going to have a second title? Because if they don't have it, then they're essentially insulting these divas who arguably all had a shot when they were on Raw, and especially for like a girl like Alexa Bliss, who was a drafted SmackDown one of the NXT picks. She's been working her butt off in NXT for a long time. Very good, very improved wrestler. And now if there's no title, and she got called up to a show where she's basically gonna be doing nothing. Except maybe blood feuds. And then you got Becky, who's breaking my heart here because I love Becky, and Sasha and Charlotte getting all the promotion on Raw, and Becky's the bridesmaid, as I've heard people call her. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And so it makes me curious, it makes me sad. Now there is some dissension among the fans about why certain other NXT superstars didn't get picked. Here's the thing: the 6 picks were both surprising in some ways and interesting in others. NXT's biggest problem is that it's an hour long. And because of that, they have so much talent, they can't promote it all. And it sucks because, like, for the longest time, I honestly felt that, SmackDown should be an hour because it was irrelevant, and NXT should be 2 hours so it could promote all this talent. Now, we knew Finn was going to leave, and it actually made sense because there was actually kind of a cluster at the top of the NXT Championship with, Joe and Nakamura and Aries. And after those 2 big losses to Joe and to Nakamura, you kind of knew that was coming. American Alpha was a total shock. They were about to go into this rivalry with Authors of Pain, who are a new tag team on the scene with NXT. They lost to Dash and Dawson. So furious about that. But it kind of makes sense because this establishes that most likely there's going to be another tag team title that's coming to SmackDown because they have all these great tag teams. They will not waste American Alpha. They love these guys too much, I can guarantee it. Nia Jax is a lovely surprise because she's been kind of idle in NXT. She had a great match with Bayley, and then she had a great match with Asuka. I forgot to mention Asuka. Asuka's my third love, if it's possible. I love all of them. I love them all, except Charlotte. Sorry, Charlotte. Not really. Oh, and Dana. So sorry. Not really. Not really sorry. But that was if you saw the WWE exclusive, I'm pretty sure no one was told. They had the entire NXT locker room watching the draft, and no one told them who was getting drafted. They knew that 6 people would be getting called up, with tag teams being one, which was a great rule. That was a great rule. Tag teams being one unless specifically stated otherwise. And so if you watch the clip, Nia Jax is actually on her phone when Stephanie called her up, and she broke down crying. Now, this is the character in the show where she's like the strongest woman in the world. She's Samoan heritage, and yet she's just overcome with emotion, which I thought was a very beautiful thing. And that adds more legitimacy to the Raw roster, who actually also got Carmella, who was another surprise. So technically, of the NXT picks, 3 were male and 3/4 because American Alpha counts as 1, and 3 were female, which I thought was very interesting. Now, for those wondering why Bayley, Asuka, Nakamura, Joe, Aries, Eric Young, Bobby Roode, TNA, NXT TNA wasn't drafted, you got to think of this in context. Yes, it's only an hour show, but they still need that star power. Nakamura has only been there since WrestleMania, and he's gunning for Samoa Joe. They were never going to draft him. Samoa Joe is the champion. They're going to have that for a while. Probably have a long feud with Nakamura. He's not going anywhere. Aries, same position. He's only been there a little while. They're going to have him grow more. Sammy was there for years. Cesaro was there for a long time. KO. Okay, KO's the exception to the rule, but it actually worked out in his favor. And even then, he still did back and forth in NXT for a while. But these guys are still young in their NXT careers, and they need to stay. Otherwise, it's going to be a case of what the point. Apollo Crews is another example of that. He was there for a short time. That was because they had so much talent. There wasn't that much for him to do. Losing Finn now, that actually helps them out so that they're not getting lost in the middle. The problem, though, now is that why didn't Bayley or Asuka get drafted up? Well, if you think about this in context, who would have been their face? Even if, let's just say, they put Asuka and Bayley up and kept Carmella and Alexa down, who would have been left? Because Nia would have been on Raw. Then there's no one. They need to make sure that NXT is kept in at least steady shape until they can build up the other stars. I actually fear for the NXT Women's Division because right now, because of all the call-ups, the only big faces they have are Asuka and Bayley, which is not a bad thing. They could carry the whole show for years, but they're going to be building someone up, and because of this, they've lost 3 of their big divas, and Carmella, Alexa, and Nia have been like the number 1 contenders outside of Bayley forever, for a while now. They even had a big triple threat match a while back to see who would go face Asuka at NXT Dallas. Nia won, obviously, but so now it's just Asuka and Bayley, and that's a problem. So they got to build themselves up. So that's why those guys weren't drafted. So Mojo Rawley, that was an interesting pick. Who's going to be with Zack Ryder on SmackDown? So they could either keep them separate or they can bring the Hype Bros together, which would add to the tag team division. So where does this leave us? I honestly have no idea. And I don't say that bluntly. I mean, obviously, Battleground is going to be a huge thing. Things could happen. And obviously, announcements could happen on the first Raw or first SmackDown of this new era of the Divide post WWE Draft. What does it all mean? I don't know. Right now there's too many questions. There's just so many questions. Will there be more titles on SmackDown? Because right now all they have is the WWE and Intercontinental Championship. I wholeheartedly believe, especially after talking about this for so long, that they're gonna disconnect the unified tag team championships so that we can have 2 separate tag team divisions, which would be great. The women's division should get another championship. If it is, and if it goes to Becky, that'll be great. I'll also settle for Alexa Bliss. Just saying. She's good. She's really good. Natty would be 3rd. Everyone else can burn. I'm sorry. Not really. But it's just, it's these questions. Who's going to get the push afterwards? Who's going to get the push after Battleground? Who will be Dean's next opponent? Will it be AJ? Will it be Cena? Will it be Ziggler? Will it be Corbin? Will it be Bray Wyatt? Who knows? And that's the big thing. The draft was the first step. And honestly, I'd say it's 50-50 at best on how good that was. And I know a lot of fans are saying that too. I'm not alone in saying this. So they started off hot with the general manager announcements. Then the draft was lukewarm at best. Now they have to finish. They have to show, hey, this is important. We really meant this is going to be a rivalry. This is going to be the brand wars, for lack of a better term. They had the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars. Let's have the brand wars. Let's do it. And obviously things can happen. There were some superstars honestly didn't get drafted because of either injury or not significant appearances. They made a joke about Heath Slater not being drafted. Well, there were a couple of other superstars who are injured who didn't get drafted. Emma, Luke Harper, or out of the business at the moment for other reasons. So they're going to come back and beef things up too. So the most important thing right now is if they don't fulfill this, if they don't bring both SmackDown and Raw to its fullest potential, if they don't take advantage of how things went down, regardless of how good or bad we feel it is, if they don't take advantage of it, then there's really no point. There was no point to this. And I know a lot of people are feeling futility in this draft because, though there were some big changes, a lot of things kind of stayed the same. And so we'll just have to see. And with that, I say we end this episode of Todd Talk. A very long 18th episode. It's the longest I've done in a while, but I feel there's a lot to talk about. So let me know what you think of the draft. Let me know what you think of what went down. Do you agree with some of the choices? Do you wish there had been changes? Do you wish you knew more what was going to happen? Do you think that SmackDown should get more even titles to help balance out the talent? Let me know in the comments below. I'm excited. I'm gonna watch SmackDown next Tuesday, that's for sure. But we'll just have to see what happens after that. And so, I just want to say, I thank you for listening to my wrestling rant. This has been a very fun 18th episode. So I thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I know you were listening, and I will see you around.